Well, another nice day today. Had a nice day yesterday. Got up to about over 40 degrees. It's not quite that warm today. It froze pretty hard last night, and the ground was hard and crunchy and slippery this morning, and it was foggy, but the sun came out, peeked out, blue sky. We actually got some sunshine here today, even though we're pretty much blocked from it a lot of the time because it's the hill right here. My tolerance for the cold has improved over what it was earlier this winter, so it doesn't feel like it's quite so bad. I want to see if I can't get these pulleys and stuff fixed on this bandsaw mill today while we got good weather here. Got snow up here on the top, on the cover over the bandsaw mill, and it's melting and dripping down on it, but I'm not going to get near as wet as I would if it was raining. Got a 24 horse Kohler motor there. It's a 2-cylinder engine, horizontally opposed, 4-stroke. It's used on a lot of tractors and equipment and stuff. I think I've used something like that on hay balers and stuff. It's got a 3-groove sheave on the output shaft of it. 2 of them go down to drive the head end of the bandsaw mill, their head wheel, drive wheel, main wheel. And then 1 A belt comes off of the inside of that and then comes over here to the hydraulic pump. So there's 2 adjustments on there for the belt tension. The motor here slides back and forth, the engine slides back and forth on the engine mount to loosen it up for the 2 big belts that go down to the drive pulley, and that's how you tension it. And then the hydraulic pump slides back and forth there to tension the A belt for the hydraulic pump. So the first thing I've got to do is loosen up those bolts, those hold downs on the engine pad, so I can slide it up, and then here's the adjustment screw on that. I can loosen that up and slide that engine over. Loosen those belts up, and I've got to take those 2 belts off first because the single belt that comes over to drive the hydraulic pump is on the rear there, and that's got to go on the back side of that. And those belts come out down here, and there's a 2-groove sheave that attaches to the shaft, and that's got an electric clutch on it. That clutch freewheels, that pulley freewheels when the power is not engaged, and you gauge power to it cause that clutch to engage. And so I've got to disconnect the electrical hookup for that clutch to get those pulleys, to get those belts out over the pulleys. Well, as I said, there are 4 bolts that hold this engine down onto the frame. So I got those loosened up, and then we have this stud right here that's used to tighten to move this back and forth to set the tension on the belt. So you'd think it'd be pretty easy, just loosen those bolts up. Loosen this nut here up on that stud and slide that thing over. But of course, nothing's ever that easy. And actually there's a tab welded on here to put a pry bar or something on to pry that thing over to get it to slide over. But again, as I said, nothing's that easy. I got to slide over a little bit, but nowhere close enough to get those belts off of there. So before I started pushing on it too hard, I went around the mill starting looking for whatever was interfering with it sliding. And I couldn't find anything until, lo and behold, I got up here, and this muffler, there's a clamp on it, and that was tight. That was what was holding it. So I loosened that clamp up and got everything to slide over then, got it over far enough, and got those old belts off. That was the simple part. And down in there, that 1 belt had come apart, and all the strings on it got all wrapped around that shaft down there, around that pulley. And that was a real rat's nest in there, so I had to get that cleaned out. That took a little while to get that all untangled and everything and get that out of there, but I got that cleaned out. Well, and then I got the new pulleys, or the new belts on. Now, when I got this mill, it had been rode hard and put away wet, so to speak. It wasn't in very good shape. This shaft up here in the front, that one down there that everything hooks into, that the bearings go through and everything that turns this head stock, the bearings were shot in there, and that shaft was ate up. So I had to get new shaft and bearings, and I wound up getting new sheaves, main wheels for the blades and everything, and changing a whole bunch of stuff around. Well, I got new belts here, drive belts for that. I had to have them special ordered through Napa. But when I started ordering blades, the guy that I ordered blades from said I should get a double B belt. Well, I'd already got the new B belt, so I wasn't going to spend more money on a double one. But this time I got to looking, and a double one doesn't cost much more than 2 singles. So I got a double belt to put on there. That's supposed to be more efficient at transmitting the power, and it's supposed to be smoother because both belts are tied together and you don't have one flopping against the other one, opposite of the other one, and getting the harmonics out of it that you do with 2 belts. Anyway, I got the double belt and put on there. Well, of course, that presented a little different problem because 2 belts like that aren't near as flexible as a single belt. So with a single belt, you can put it on one groove, work it on the groove up here, and then work it over and stuff and get it over. But with 2 belts, I had to move the mill over quite a ways to get that belt on there, and then I still had to work it on. I got the mill over as far as I could, and then I still had to work it on. But we got it on, and I've got it adjusted now to where it's set pretty good. I don't want it any tighter than that, or that'll liable to take the bearings out of something. But it's only about half the distance as it was before. So now the problem is I've got a new belt here for the pump, but the new belt is the same size as the old belt, and it's too short. I've got the pump slid over on its adjustments as far as it'll go, and I can't come anywhere close to getting this belt on there. And you can see, even if I did, it'd be too tight. Yeah, it's still going to be a little bit too tight. So I'm going to have to figure out how long of a belt I'm going to need for that, and get a new belt for that before I proceed any farther. But I got the new drive belt on anyway. I like the looks of that. It's been a few days since I worked on this mobile dimension sawmill. The last time I worked on it, I was putting these belts on, and I got this double B belt on there, and I put a belt on, an A belt on for the hydraulic unit. But the B belt, because it's a double and doesn't fit down tight in those grooves, I couldn't tighten it up enough to get enough slack to put this A belt on there for the hydraulic pump. So I had to order something else. I had to do something else with it. So since this belt, this B belt, was so tight on there, I had to move this motor over as far as I could get it to get this belt on there, and even then I had to work it on. I decided not to take this A belt off of there. I'm going to get some tie straps and tie that on there and leave it on there. What I decided to do is to get one of these link belts to use on there instead. And meanwhile, the weather has been too bad to do anything out here anyway, so I didn't really lose anything. I had a day a couple days ago that was real nice and sunny, and I was kind of itching to get out here and work on it, but the belt hadn't came yet. I had to take some time off and take a course to get my flight instructor certificate renewed. So all that's done now, I don't have to worry about it. But what I'm going to do is use one of these link belts here on here. Maybe I should have got a bigger belt for that. That really could use a bigger belt on there. This is a 3/8, and I should have got maybe a 1/2 inch, I guess. So anyway, I got this in the mail yesterday. The wife brought it home yesterday when she came home from town, which is just right. Yesterday the weather was too crappy to do anything out here with anyway. This stuff is kind of expensive. It's like $10 a foot average, but I found a place on eBay that had it, and I got 10 feet of it for $55, 60 some dollars with it shipped. So we'll put this on there and we should be good to go. I've wanted some of this stuff anyway because there's other things that I can use it for. Okay, get that belt tied up out of the way, and I'll go ahead and tighten up this pump. So I'll probably have to get the battery charger out here to boost that battery to get this thing started. I put the battery charger on there to boost that battery up a little bit. I'll let it warm it up a little bit before I take it off. Well, meanwhile, I'll go ahead and take this bearing off for this rear guide roller. You can take that off of there. See, it's got a shoulder bolt on it, and that's been spinning on that shoulder bolt. So I made my other one up, my other guide rollers up. I'll get those put on. Well, here's my new guide roller with the collar around it. that on there. Alright, the belts are working good. Everything's running nice and smooth. That looks a lot better without those two belts flopping up and down independently of each other. So that looks pretty good. I want to let that engine warm up a little bit, and then I'll shut it off, put a blade on it, and check out and see how these guide rollers are going to work. I shut that off and mounted a blade on there, and then I spun it around by hand and made sure everything cleared. Hey baby girl, hey baby girl, what are you doing, huh? What are you doing? Did Mom let you outside, huh? Did you come outside? Yeah, good girl. So I spun that around by hand, made sure everything cleared, and then I engaged the clutch on it and let it run under power a little bit just to make sure everything was running good. And I've got this roller here now, this one that I just revamped. I can actually bring it out a little bit, but it's in good place where it's at. But I need to adjust the cam on it so that it's down just a little bit. And this back roller here, I've now got between a 16th and 32nd of an inch clearance there. Anyway, the clearance is a lot better than what it was. It's not touching, it's not riding on it. And even if I put a little pressure on it, put quite a bit of pressure on it, it'll just barely start riding on it. So that's good. So I'll get a wrench and adjust this roller here. That's the one that I had to take off and thread it so that it would sit back in there farther. Like I said, I can actually bring it out just a little bit. Yeah, that'll be perfect just like that. Those are free, but the blade will go up to it if it needs to. So that fixes my guide rollers. I'm happy with that. I'll get the wrenches and tighten that one up. Now I forget what I'm doing here as I go along because it's so far between. This blade is sharp and it actually feels pretty good, but I remember that I decided I need to set the teeth on these blades. So what I need to do is put the blades on here because a lot of them have burrs on the back of them here where they've rubbed up against those guide rollers. So I need to mount the blades up on here and then run the blade around slow under power and get the grinder up there, sander or something, and knock those burrs off of those blades. And then I can take them in to the hanger and set my tooth setter up, get the teeth set on these blades so they'll cut straight. There she is, running perfect. Blade guides are lined up just right. It's not touching the rear guide rollers at all, but it's got just enough clearance on it that as soon as it gets a little pressure, it'll go back and start running on those. And the blade is running free. The belts are working good. They're not flopping around. Everything's running smooth. I'm going to let it run for a little while, warm up. It'll be dark here pretty soon, so it's getting too late in the day to do anything else with this. I'm going to go ahead and let this thing run for a little bit, warm up, and let all the belts get relaxed and stuff on it, and then check them out again. But so far, everything looks really good. I'm happy with that. A nice surprise this morning. Cleared off last night, and we had some beautiful stars last night. Got a little foggy, but this morning it was clear blue sky and beautiful sunshine. And we actually had a dry morning to go out and walk the dogs this morning. Got out and got them walked without getting wet for a change. We didn't get to walk in the sunshine because the road that I walked them on is in the heavy timber, and so it doesn't get much sunshine there. But at least most of the snow was melted off of the road into the timber, and places where it wasn't melted off, where it was more open, it's melted down in the ruts for the car passage to where it's down to bare ground, so it was nice, easy walking. So that was nice. And then we had wolves howling out there this morning when we were walking the dogs. They were 200 or 300 yards away. They were pretty close, and they got the dogs' attention, but they left. They quit howling after a little while, and we didn't hear them on the way back. We couldn't see them, of course, because like I said, it's heavy timber there. It's like a jungle. But anyway, it was a nice walk this morning. Well, I get out here today in this weather. It's starting to cloud up already, and the forecast, of course, is for rain and snow. But while it's not doing either one of those, I'll get out here and work on this mill a little bit more. I got a blade put on there now, one of the ones that I used before, and I'm going to go ahead and get the grinder out. And it's got a little mushroom on the back of it there, on the back of the blade. So I'm going to get the grinder out, and I'll turn the mill on and let it run real slow while I put the grinder on the back of the blade there and take that mushroom off of it. And then I've got some more. I guess I sharpened up about a dozen of them or 16 of them or something like that, and most of them have all got that. Well, I've got to get that taken off and get that blade cleaned up before I get my tooth setter out and put those on the tooth setter. And now this blade here is one that I used, so I'm going to want to sharpen it up before I put it on the tooth setter. Oh, anyway, I got the mill going, and that's what I'll do. A little bit of disappointment on there. I got the belt on there yesterday, the link belt, and it's too small. It's too narrow. I got a 3/8 and I should have got a 1/2 inch. It works okay now at idle and for setting the tension on that, but when I went to start to raise that carriage up and down, it was slipping and it wouldn't operate the mill like that, so I had to go order another belt for it. Oh, the mill's not going to be operable until I get the other belt on there and make sure that pump doesn't slip when I start getting it ready to use it. But this will work now for what I need here. All I need to got the tension on the blade so that I can put it in gear and run it. And we've got the good new belt on there for running the blade. And so all that'll work for what we need now. I'll get those blades cleaned up, and then we'll get the tooth setter out and set the teeth on them. Then we should be able to go to town with milling this lumber up. Okay, there's one done. 18 more of them to go. I put this one in the hanger next to my sharpening grinder so that I know that I've got to resharpen this one. Of course, it's pretty obvious because it's packed with sawdust in there in the teeth. But this one has to be resharpened. The rest of them I just have to knock the burr off the back of the blade and then set the teeth. Alright, that's the last one. It didn't take me near as long to do those as I expected, because once I got to checking them, most of them didn't have a burr on it at all. Some of them had just barely enough of a burr that you could feel it with your fingernail when you rubbed it across them. I went ahead and ground those down. Of course, it takes just about as long to do those as it does with a big burr on them, because most of the time is spent putting that blade on and off the mill and make sure it's routed correctly, runs correctly. Anyway, I got all those all done, and it hadn't started raining yet or snowing, although it's getting closer by the minute. Anyway, I'll go ahead and put all those in the hanger, and I can go ahead and get the teeth set on them. Well, most of those I probably could have used them as is, but I noticed that I was getting wavy cuts and stuff on them. So anyway, it's time to reset the teeth on them. I've done this before here, and I've done it before in the shop. And I've set up in the shop by taking a couple 2x4s, clamping down to the bench, and then running those over the 2x4s and sliding them over them, take the grinder and grind the backs of them. That's a lot of work. That takes a lot of time to do that, to pull those through by hand and everything, do every inch on them. And then once you do one side, the outside of it, then you got to turn the bands inside out and do the inside of them, and then turn the bands back right side out for the direction of cut that this mill is. So I guess I'm done with this mill for a little while now until I get that belt. It only took me a week to get that belt from the time I ordered it. Come from Florida, bearings and belts or something like that. Had the best price on them, and they ship right away. Anyway, we'll see how a 1/2 inch belt works on that. The 3/8 inch isn't enough. I think a 5/8 is too wide for that pulley that's on the pump. It would work in the pulley on the drive end of it, but it wouldn't work on the pump.